Hello lovely, so today I'm making the downstairs floor for Bramble Cottage, and I will take you through step by step all of the way as I do it. So a bit of a longer video, but you can watch it as many times as you want to pick up on the bits, and check out the comments because there may be things that I've put in the comments that I forgot to say at the time. I'll see you in a minute. So lovely, are you ready to start? So we've got our floor paper, our piece that we're going to use, and I bought two of these, and actually that's worked out the right amount, and these are from Streets Ahead. I can't remember exactly which website I got them from. Streets Ahead are the supplier and they only do wholesale, so I got it from an online store. I will put the link in the comments, or the name of the store. There, you know, you can find them for yourself very easily, not on commission or anything like that. So they are sticky backed boards, and you don't want to take the sticky backing off yet. You can see where there are some joins, and I feel that this is actually too close together for my own flavour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them all into long strips, cut all the strips out, and then stagger them on my paper, and I will let you watch. Might speed it up a bit though, that bit. I don't know if you've seen where I've said it, that traditionally, if you were building a house, you would have the floorboards crossways to the joists. So if the joists of the house came this way, then you'd have the floorboards going that way. If the joists went that way, then you'd have the floorboards coming that way, because then they would be nailed into the joists. That's what makes it a secure floor to walk across, is to figure out where the joists are. For our purposes, we really want the front of our floor. Where's the camera? Can you see it? We really want the front of the floor on the front, the longest piece of floorboard. Got to get used to this camera. The longest piece of the floorboard. So our floorboards want to go crossways, because otherwise you're looking at all of these ends, which might not be the prettiest vision. If you want to do it that way, you do it that way, but you might be kicking yourself afterwards and then think, oh, we should have done it the other way, because all of these edges are going to be covered over with bits of furniture probably, aren't they? So a nice neat edge at the front. But first things first, I've got a new blade in my scalpel. Scalpel handles are from when I was a chiropodist, so I'm very comfortable using these, and I've got lots of blades to use up. And I have got my favourite tool, a guillotine, which we're going to use for cutting the planks, for want of a better term, and a nice sharp pencil. I like to use these non-stop pencils. They've got a little rubber on the end, but I find then I haven't got to worry about sharpening them, and they're good. And my cutting board, because if I'm going to be using my blade, I'll be using that. So let's get cutting. When you are cutting through, separating the boards with this, you're going to be cutting through the paper. If you want a ruler as well. Make sure you're on a cutting board. Don't do it on the dining room table. Might end up in tears afterwards. And you need to get your blade. Sometimes it's easier to start somewhere where it looks a bit more gappy. Don't go too fierce, or else you will damage the neighbouring board. But you need to find a gap, and a gap isn't always at the end. Sometimes they're quite snug, and you've got to wiggle them about a bit to get in between the boards. There. And if you're sharing your house with other people, make sure you put your blade somewhere safe. Always don't leave it lying around on the table, my blade always goes over here. Let me show you, on my lamp base. That's where my blade lives. I don't have any little people or curious hands in my studio here, so it's perfectly safe, but just so that I don't get it mixed up with bits of paper and all sorts of other stuff and inadvertently put my hand on it. This can take longer than you think it's going to take because you want to do it accurately, and you see even now that hasn't really cut through very well, but it started it, so it's just a bit of a fiddly do, you know, and sometimes it takes as long as it takes, but you need concentration. Here we are, first board. See if this is the easiest way. I can't remember how I did it last time. I know I tried several ways, and you will probably be left with all sorts of bits and pieces, different lengths afterwards. Don't worry about that. You'll find lots of projects you can use the boards for. What I will say about these boards is I did try splitting them so that I'm cutting them lengthways, but because of the grain of them, and I'm not sure what wood this is, but they really didn't want to, so I tried to split them the length of the board to make a shallow one, and they didn't want to do it at all. They just came out all messy, and so this is probably the easiest way of doing it, actually. That didn't work, so I think if you're going to reuse them or use up what you've got, try and stick to the width of the board that you've got. Or slice him down. What I do find with all of my house making projects, I find them, it's sort of mindful because I get so engrossed in what I'm doing and so immersed in what I'm doing. This is where I find it difficult to concentrate and to talk to the camera because I'm engrossed. So if it's something I've done before, that's a bit different. I can multitask then. So I'm just going to carry on with this, and I'll come back to you when I've separated them all up. So I have separated out my planks, let's call them planks because that's what they are in floor world. So those are the shortest ones because they were already split, weren't they, on that sheet. These are the mid-length and these are the long ones. And I've worked out my first length. Oh, and I'd already worked out my second length, but it's gone somewhere. I've tidied it up. Never mind, do another one. Now bear in mind, what is the age of your property? What is the character of your property? Because the best wood would have gone to the poshest houses. So if yours is a very wealthy Georgian something, then they would have had a lot better wood and planks than a rustic cottage. Mine is a much more rustic cottage, so that will be reflected in the quality of the floorboards. And also, because it's very old, I want it to look a bit battered inside. I want the floor to have that worn texture. And I did think about doing tiles, you know, doing like slabs, stone slabs on the floor. And I remember when I did my first property, I think it was just a room box. That's all I can remember of it. I think it was a room box. Way back in the 80s. This was before we had online resources or videos or training, whatever. And I made floor slabs, and I can't remember quite whether or not it was air drying clay. I don't even remember if it was that or if it was cardboard or what, but I do remember that it made for a very uneven surface, which then became a bit tricky for furniture. So I thought, well, I'm not going to do that again. And I know you can get like paper, like I've got the textured slates for my roof. You could get paper that is textured, but actually I enjoy doing the floorboards. So this is what I wanted to do, but I'm going to rough them up a bit so it will reflect an old cottage and also a more rustic nature, because they wouldn't have had the best planks of wood in the cottage, because that would be nabbed for the landowner or the wealthy of the area. So I've marked on the end of my first plank, so I know where that's going to go on the front of my sheet, and I marked with my pencil where I'm going to cut this. And this is a fabulous tool because you just slide it in. If I was buying another one, I would get one with the moulded on metal, whatever you call this platform with the angles on. This had to be screwed on, but I think I would have bought one with the moulded on one. So if you've yet to buy one, even if it costs a bit more money, I think that would be beneficial. But you put it in and just slice it down. So I've got a little piece left. I will keep that because that will come in useful. And this is in effect like a Stanley knife blade. Incredibly sharp. When I did my upstairs floor, this hadn't arrived. I hadn't got this at that point. I think I was still researching. And I cut them all with a blade, with my scalpel blade. And you know what? It was such hard work going across the grain with a blade. It was really a pain. So I'm just going to, it doesn't seem to want to get, its angles are slightly different from how you think it's going to be. So that's going to be my lovely front edge. So I'm going to stick that on, peel off, where's my bin? I'll throw them on the floor for now, find my bin in a minute. It's like your first strip of wallpaper, it's got to be accurate because it will send everything off otherwise. There we go, lovely. So the next one, I think I will have about there. And I'm going to leave a bit of a gap between my floorboards, you know, where treasure can fall down between the floorboards, and just makes it a little bit more interesting, because that's how it would have been. And I've been in old cottages. I used to house it for a friend that they lived, excuse me, she lived in a converted chapel, oh, excuse me, and the floorboards there were incredible. I mean, you'd certainly lose your money down there and lose all sorts of things down there, but they're original to the property. So if you're going to be staying in anywhere old and interesting, Airbnb or something like that, take a notebook, do your research, notice the details about things, and see, you know, what you can incorporate. If you're going out for, I don't know, afternoon tea or just a cup of tea or something, go see if you can go to somewhere that is in period with the property that you're making, just to give you more ideas. So I'm leaving a little gap between the floorboards and where they meet, so a little gap there. Now I'm not saying that all of my joins are going to be in line. They may be, they may not. We'll see. I like to vary things. I like it to be a bit random and a bit, you know, whatever. This has got a bit of a knot in there. See a dark bit there, so a little chunk has come out, so I really like that. That will really give the floor character, and it's I want to put that where it can be seen a bit more, so we'll save that. This bit here, and these sheets, these strips, they've got so much character in them already. It just makes it really interesting. So let's have about there to cut that, I think. See, I don't do precise. I do a bit sort of like near enough. That'll do. Looks about right. Because they certainly didn't have precise measurements when my cottage was made, so that works for me. They would have had tradespeople that, would go from this end, that knew what they were doing because they'd done it forever, and they probably learnt from their father and their grandfather. But a lot of it would have been done by eye and experience. And let's break into a longer one here, I think, just to, I don't want to be left with too many little idly fiddly bits, so start cutting up some of the longer ones. And have you already thought about, I hope you can hear me all right, I just realised I haven't put a microphone on. Have you thought about whether or not you're going to be varnishing or staining or waxing? How are you going to be finishing your floor? Have you decided? Because now might be a good time to think about it. I'll do a dark oak stain, and then I'm probably going to use a wax finish, but I might do something a bit shinier in some places, so where it would be high traffic, sort of like just inside the front door and stuff like that, at the bottom of the stairs, I will do a bit of a shinier finish, and I might have a bit more of a go with the sandpaper in those areas just to wear it down a little bit more. Then also you might want to think about, do you have any mice? Does anything else live in your building with you? Anything that munches its... Oh, this is the one with the interesting board, isn't it? So where's that going to go? I want that over there. I want that in the middle of the room where it could be seen. Put that there. Yes, do you have anything else that lives in your property? Do you have chickens free ranging, or geese, or dogs, cats? I used to live on a farm years ago, and we often used to find the chickens free ranging in. Bless them. So just something else to think about with your floors. You've got chicken poop. Oh. They are sticky. Might just have to do. That might just have to be where... No, I'm not happy with that. Come on up. Oh, and you're the board I really wanted to celebrate. So you just can't be too attached to the outcome of these things, because sometimes it all just goes the way it goes. No point in getting stressed about it. We're doing this for the fun of it. If it stops being fun, I don't want to play anymore. So I wonder what ideas are coming to mind from what I've said to you. Is the first floor that you're making, is it an upstairs one, or is it a scullery? Are you going to be putting down rugs or carpet or anything on it? Remember, it wasn't all that long ago and we just had a bit of carpet in the middle of the floor. I remember many houses with lino or floorboards around the edge. I don't know when fitted carpets came in, but even in my teen years I had friends whose houses didn't have carpets, fitted carpets. And a house that I bought, which had been, 1930s originally, a house that I bought, underneath the top layer of carpet was layers and layers of carpet, but they were carpets in the centre with newspaper underneath, and under that was lino, and the lino went all the way around the room, and underneath the lino were there were the floorboards. So it was quite a way down to get to floorboards, but instead of underlay, well, they never stripped it back all the way. It was just, you know, previous, very threadbare, rotting carpet. I think there was an underlay at some point. We did find underlay because it just sort of disintegrated. And as we were trying to throw it out of the window into the skip, it was all disintegrating. It was, talk about mask and gloves and all of that stuff. It was really quite horrible. But it had been down there for a long, long time. And it was a 1930s house, and underneath, I see that's a bit long, I'm going to have to tidy that up. Underneath the carpet that was on top of the lino was newspaper dated 1940s something. Oh no, that was 1970s. Was it? No, it was 40s. Ancient newspapers and all sorts of bits and pieces, and it was like a treasure trove reading these bits of material, newspaper material and stuff that we found. It was a real insight, and we talked to the lady who we bought the house from. She was quite elderly at that point, and they had been the second occupant. So it had been made in the 1930s, and she'd raised all of her children there. Husband had worked on the railway in Shrewsbury. Great long garden, so they used to grow all of their own veg. And because he was on the railway, he was in reserved occupation during the war. I think he was just a young man then, not sure. But when she moved in, it was all gas lamps and coal fires. So where are we up to? Let's put this one here. So can you see I'm making, so I'm staggering the breaks, and actually this is, well, that's a bit off, but this is quite even for me. in my creative, wonky, sort of random way. So my stairs are going to be going up the back there, and I've got the stove somewhere here. So I'm going to dirty it up, the floor around the stove, because hey, we've all dropped something, haven't we? Taken it out the oven or whatever, and it's only to be expected that it would be marked. When we finally got the carpets up in the, well, I suppose it would be in the dining room. There was sort of a front room and a back room and a scullery kitchen in this house. And when we finally got all the carpets up and everything, there was burnt bits on the floor. And the lady came round with spare sets of keys for us after we moved in. And we asked her about this, and she said, oh yes, that's because her husband had been on nights and he'd fallen asleep in front of the fire, and coals had rolled off the fire onto the floor and burnt the floorboards. And that evidence was still there. We had a really nice chat with her because there's lots of things that she had forgotten, and our questions about the property had prompted quite a lot of memories, I think, for her. You say she'd raised her children there, and it had been a very happy home for many years, but it was in desperate need of refurbishment and stuff. It had polystyrene ceiling tiles in the kitchen. Woo, talk about a fire hazard. But that's what they did. And all the picture rails were still there, original picture rails, and beautiful doors. We sent away all the doors to be dipped. They had been had hardboard tacked to the over the panelling, and we found a load of original or handles that would have been in keeping with the original. I think that we found one original door, so we knew what we were looking for handles and hardware and stuff. And the stairs, all the banisters, the spindles of the stairs had all been boxed in, so that all looked very smooth and sleek, but actually it was just ripped off the hardboard, and there we were, beautiful. Nothing ornate, very simple, just rectangular, square, whatever, spindles, but they were there. But the original newel post was there, that was incredibly worn on the top. How many hands had grabbed hold of that as they charged up and down stairs and stuff. I learnt a lot about buildings in that house, but my then husband was a carpenter, so we were renovating it. We had to take it back to plaster, back to the bare plaster, and replaster some walls. It was needed rewiring and replumbing and everything. And guess who did most of it? Me. Monster scraping wallpaper sessions and paper off the ceiling. We had to repaper the ceiling. Oh my goodness, what a job that was. Because papering covers a multitude of sins, as we know. And short of replastering the whole house, so I'm going to finish up with this, and I will come back to you when I'm done. So let's give you a close-up I've tried to vary the grain on the boards. I'm really pleased with how it's come up. The only problem being, so this is the back. The stairs are going to be ending about here somewhere. This is all going to be sink and under the stairs. So often what happens, so I've just used up some of the nadgery little bits because that's not going to be seen at the back underneath the kitchen setup and under the stairs. And I've had to cut 2 bits here. Should I have that one? Anyway, I need to just double, oh yes, no, that one. That was the spare bit. Cutting these strips lengthways is really, really tough, really tricky, particularly when you're trying to do a narrow strip. But anyway, I've done it. I just wanted to complete the job and have a tidy finished bit, so I'll stick that on, although I know it's not the best, but I know that that's not going to be seen, but it still had to be done in my opinion. So then I've got a flat surface to work from. So these little bits here, hey ho, they won't be seen. So the next thing I'm going to do, which will be tomorrow now, is to do the nail holes. And because I've got you mobile, let's take you over here to my tool drawer. Like a lady's handbag, this, you see, magic in here, see what's going on. So this is my pokey thing, and I'm going to use this to create the nail holes. So let's do one here, doing it left-handed, so let's see how it comes out. So I will go over this to make it a bit bolder. It is good to use our non-dominant hand from time to time to keep our dexterity. So I'm going to go over these several times, but that's basically what I'm going to do on every joint. And I'm going to go over it with sandpaper now, well, tomorrow, and I'm probably going to make it look a bit rougher, maybe get a blade on it in places. I can feel like that board there is higher than this board here. That's okay, because when I've given it a sand, it will smooth it off. And then what I will do is I'll go over the nail holes again, and then I will varnish it. I'll show you that. And then I'll go over and sand it again. So it'll get some rustic wear looking between the varnishes and the sandings. And it's one of those things that, you know, it'll take as long as it takes to get the look, the finished look that I'm after. But yeah, pleased with that. And yeah, take it from there. Welcome back. So I have given the floorboards quite a good sand. Don't know if you could see that. And I have just used 180 grit sandpaper, and I've wrapped it around this block. This is it's a block that I use for decorating in my big house. Just wrap the sandpaper around this, and then if you've used, you know, worn that bit quite a bit, you can just wrap it round another bit. Saves tearing the sandpaper up. But if it's easier for you to do that, then that's fine. What I find using a block, it gives me good even coverage when I want to sand something like this. But I have gone a little bit more over some particular areas, which has just made me think, actually, I will go over. I just want to do this where the door is a little bit more. I don't mind that area being a little bit thinner. It's not going to be hugely noticeable, but it amuses me. So take off the dust, and maybe you want to use a soft brush just to clean it out of the grooves. You may wish to wear a mask when you do this. Having just said that, I realise I haven't got a mask on. I have finished my cup of tea though, so I haven't got dust going in all of my tea. That would be absolute disaster. Right, let's just empty this in my bin. When you think about setting up a workspace, this whole hobby of making miniatures can actually be quite messy. So I'm concentrating on doing the messy jobs at this time of the year when I can do it in my studio, because I don't want to be doing these jobs in my kitchen in the winter. I will do the soft furnishings, the sewing and things like that in the winter. And I'm using water wipes because I have them. See, it lifts off quite a lot of dust. Just to clean my board. And that lifts off any dust. So I have already gone over and made, don't know if you can see, the nail holes. So this is the back of the room. Nail holes between the floorboard joints. I may go over that again afterwards. So, wood dye. If you have gloves, I recommend you wear them, even if they're your marigolds, because this stuff can be really quite messy. And you want to give it a really, really good shake while you have the lid on very firmly. And actually, I'm going to have an old piece of paper here. This is decorating lining paper, but it's really good if I'm going to be doing something very messy. And I was having incredible trouble getting these child-proof lids off. And because I'm doing a large area, I've got this lid from a pot. I'm going to tip some into there. It's quite gloopy, this varnish. Well, it's wood dye, isn't it? Not varnish. So this is Colron from, and this is just from B&Q, wood dye, and this is Georgian medium oak. And it says, gives a deep, rich, penetrating colour to interior wood. I'm quite possibly going to go over it in places just to indicate more wear, give it a bit more patina. We'll see how it goes. And when you're painting it on, make sure you get in all the grooves. So I tend to open up the gaps. This is why you want to be sure you've dusted it. So you could do this bit at the end if you want to just finish it off. But I want to do that before it dries too much. And you can see it just brings out a lovely lustre on the wood. It really makes it, I think, very authentic. And if you're using some paper like this, then you haven't got to worry about the surface that you're painting on. And I'm wearing, you'll often see me wearing this old fleecy top. It's the one I do my gardening in, and it's the one I do all sorts of dirtier, grubbier projects in. Now make sure you do this front strip, because this is where, on my house, this is the opening strip, so you want to make sure that that has a good covering. Yes, I haven't taken off this, it's got a paper backing underneath, but I want to make sure that all this is well stained as well. I don't know about you, but I find it fascinating watching YouTube videos of people doing their house and doing projects. I just watch them for hours and hours. So I'm trying to make some longer videos by adding them, sticking them together, so you're not watching all the fiddly bits in between that maybe you don't need to watch, but you haven't got to go searching for the next video in the project. So I think I'm going to carry on with this, and I will come back to you when I've completed this first coat and probably had a cup of tea. So here we are. The floor is dry. And can't you just guess at what might have been dropped between the gaps in the floorboards? What I think I'm going to do is have a bit of a sand, and then I'm going to go over it with some burnt umber, which is a very dark brown, a watery mix of burnt umber. I'm not going to record all of this. Well, I might do, I'll see. When you're using paints in your craft things, please don't invest in really good quality paints unless you're going to be doing particular things. You know, here it is, I just want to brown up, darken up this floor. If you can hear a jingle, that's Max. Max is having a wash and he can be a bit noisy about it. It's a bit slobber dobber sometimes. So yeah, this just needs a bit of darkening. I don't want to buy another can of wood dye if I don't need to, whereas these are, you know, you can get a whole selection of paints, very affordable. This is student quality, and it's perfectly good for just darkening up this floor. I want the floor, this floor downstairs, to be quite a bit darker than the bedroom floor, because you can imagine it would have more traffic, particularly from here where the front door is, going through, going to the stove, going to the bottom of the stairs, if that will be there. So yeah, just think about how your room is used for it to look more realistic. You don't want it all to be perfect, and let's face it, in an old cottage nothing was perfect, but you know, have it a little bit messy and a bit worn, and you can see how the stain has taken to a different degree on bits that were sanded. So when it's sanded even more, there will be another variety of shades, which I think will be really lovely. Okay, I'm going to prepare my paint and see you on the next section. So let's share this next bit with you. I have got 180 grit sandpaper, I've remembered to put my microphone on, so hopefully you won't hear all the pussycat having a wash noises, and also pigeons stomping around on my roof. I have put a pinion or apron because I don't have my oldest, dirtiest trousers on, and I'd rather not get these covered in dust, but I do have my normal roughy tufty sweat top on. So let's just have a go and see how this comes out. Working in the direction of the grain. Sorry, Max, you don't like that noise, do you? He's perfectly free to go if he chooses. The door is open. But he does like to be in here with me. Just likes to be around whatever it is that is happening. And I wouldn't be sanding bare wood with him in the cabin. There is very little dust with this because this is it's only a very light sand. So what I want to do is, so I'm going to use some of this burnt umber paint. I've got my gloves on because this could end up messy. I might possibly add a bit of Payne's grey, which I find is black can be really intense. I don't like using black paint much. I prefer to use Payne's grey, and I say I want quite a watery mix, so this is clean water I'm adding, but not mix it on my wood because it could all go messy. Yeah, that's not as dark as I would like, and I'm using quite a rough bristle brush because I don't want a smooth finish. No, that's not the one I want. Got that. Let's have a bit of Payne's grey. We'll see how this looks. Oh yes, that's better. See, that's darkened it up quite a lot, but it's not as harsh as black. Put a bit more brown in there. And if you've watched any of my art videos, you'll know that I do tend to just sort of create on the fly. I'm not precious about these things, but what I can do, because this is scrap paper, just test out that colour. Ooh, where is it in camera? There. So that's really dark brown. It's quite thick, so I might be adding more water as I go, but I don't want it to be even, as I say, so we'll just see what happens. That's going to be brilliant, actually. A bit more water. And all the artist's materials that I use in my projects is stuff that I had already. There's no need for you to spend lots of money on stuff. You might find it more useful to spend money on things like a hand guillotine, which I showed you for cutting lengths of wood. Don't buy things unless you know you need them. And just because I use them doesn't mean to say you have to use them. So I'm just dipping in some plain water as well, because I want this to be quite watery and I don't want to have brush marks. Let your intuition guide you, and if you think that you have made a mess, walk away, because it could be that when you come back tomorrow you'll go, actually that looks really good. Perfectionism is a real stifler of creativity, and if you're inspired to do something, follow that little inner voice, because that could well be the perfect thing. I want to put a bit more around where the cooker is. I'll get it in all those grooves as well. You can just imagine, you know, if somebody's been living in this cottage and it's the original floor, how many times has, I don't know, they've dropped an egg on the floor, or the milk's boiled over, or, you know, all the normal mishaps that comes from living. I could make some other suggestions if you've ever lived with animals or children. You can think of plenty of messy mishaps. That's looking good. I like the grey tinge. Oh, I didn't think I was going to use all that, but there we are. I have, and so we'll see how that dries out, and I'm just gonna, my little palette-y thing, I'll just give it a wash out in the water. Easiest way to clean stuff up is when it's still wet. And I always have some blue roll with me. Not loo roll, blue roll, which you can get in B&Q, but I got mine from a local store called Charlie's, which sells all sorts of stuff at a reasonable price. I think I'm going to sneeze. Hello lovely, back again. So where are we at now? I have gone over this with the stain that I was going to do, and I've also gone over with some different brown acrylic paint and some more Payne's grey, I wanted it darker. I really wanted it darker because the older the cottage is, and somewhere that takes a lot of wear will have more patina, as they call it in the antique world. It's the sort of the wear and tear of life, and it's the wood changes as it gets older, and it gets, you know, feet trampled over it and a broken egg, and you know, the detritus of life and whatever. But anyway, an older floor will be darker, and I wanted it darker than the upstairs floor. So anyway, I decided to darken it. So there are a couple of things I wanted to mention to you about paint. I often use these lids for mixing paint on if I'm going to use it watery, and I did do this quite watery because I particularly wanted to paint in between the planks, let's call them. And because I've done this on paper, it means I'm able to open up the planks and get in there. And when you do that, it gives something more depth, and it will, so this is the front, it will show it off more when it's in the cottage, but also it's like it picks out, because it makes the gaps look even darker. It picks out the gaps more and gives it more character, more three-dimensional. And it's like, if you've ever taken up an old floor, you might not have done, I've done a couple in the past in renovation projects, and the crud that is underneath those floorboards is phenomenal. I mean, we're talking dust, detritus, there'll be chicken bones or whatever left over from the people that fitted the floor. You know, who knows what will be down there, but there will be a lot of dust and gunk. Sometimes you find bits of treasure, you might find a bit of money or something like that. Sometimes there'll be a loose floorboard that somebody will deliberately hide something in. They'll use it as a little hiding place. Didn't find any magical hiding places in the floors I've taken up. So yes, I used a watery mix to get between there. Because I particularly wanted this to be a mix of colours, I've just done it very messily, you know, a bit of grey here, a bit of brown there, a bit of grey browny mixed in together, splodged around. I didn't want an even colour over on this floor, and that is a very conscious, deliberate thing. If you're painting something and you want it all to be the same colour or the same, you know, the same blend of paint, make sure you mix up enough and more to do the whole project, because you won't be able to mix it, you won't be able to get that same blend again. It's like, it won't happen. So make sure you mix up enough of just the right colour, and it could be you get just the right colour, but you know, you're just sort of beginning to mix some stuff. So mix them more, get a decent quantity to do all that you're going to do with it, and maybe a second coat if it is still wet by then. And you could put cling film over your container, which would help keep it moist, and spray it with water would help. But make sure you mix up enough before you start if you want everything to be uniform colour. So before the next stage, you might want to go over with your pricking tool, your spiky thing, to do the nail holes if you're doing that. So I've been thinking about, what am I going to finish this with? I want it a bit more glossy than upstairs because of the way it takes more wear. Imagine stocking feet walking over it all the time, as well as bare feet, so you've got the oils from people's feet on the wood. So I've got some choices. I could use this clear gloss varnish, furniture varnish. I think that might be a bit too glossy, a bit too blingy. The floor upstairs, I used this finishing wax that I bought for some chalk paint upcycling furniture. That's probably sealed it, but it's not glossy at all. So I'm thinking I might use some of this Liquitex Gloss Medium, because I've already got it. It's here, it's in my art supplies, I can use it. This actual bottle I think is quite old. It was one somebody gave me when she was packing up all her art stuff for a big move. So that's half used. I'm going to have to give it a really good stir before I start. But I don't normally do this, but I was really, really good. And I've done a little tester. So this little bit of floorboard, same stuff. It's only got one coat of stain on and it hasn't been sanded or anything like that. But I wanted to see just how shiny it came out, this gloss medium. And I think it's going to be all right. It's sort of shiny, but it's not, it doesn't look like varnish. That's the thing. I didn't want this to look like a yacht surface or anything like that. I just want to give it a bit of a sheen. So I think I'm going to use this and we'll see how it goes. So I've got a nice soft synthetic brush because I find synthetic brushes are good for this sort of thing, and also definitely better than a bristly one. If I used one of these, I'd be left with brush marks, and I used this brush because I had it handy to paint on there, and I've got brush marks, but that was only a testing thing. Oh, the other thing I wanted to, that was part of my reasoning for wanting this darker, as I particularly wanted contrast with the other things that I'm doing. So, I mean, obviously there's going to be other furniture in there, and I'm going to have a nice big easy chair and stuff like that. But this is the door that is going to be through to the bathroom. So that's a light oak. The stairs are going to be right at the back of the room. Can you see that? Stairs right at the back of the room. They are going to have their banister and stuff like that. This is the newel post, which is light oak as well, which is only a work in progress so far. So there is quite a stark contrast between the floor and the stairs. I'm sort of thinking the stairs were original. Sorry, the floor was original. The stairs are a later addition to this cottage, because they don't look like old stairs, do they? You know, I mean, they're not old wibbly wobbly rickety stairs. These are sort of like swanky danky new stairs. So there must be a tale to be told with that. So bearing in mind it's only got a little hole going up to upstairs, it could have been the original people in the cottage actually went up in a ladder. That's not unusual, because when you think about, you know, long time ago, to make stairs would have been quite complicated for people without joinery skills, whereas they've got a ladder. You can make a ladder easily enough. So I'm going to give this a good, I'll give it a shake first. And I'm going to give it a good stir as well. This is a dry, it's actually an orange stick. Oh yeah, that doesn't look lumpy or anything like that, so that's good. So I'm going to use the other side of this lid. Whoop. Pour some in there. I can always put back what I don't use. I just wet my brush a little bit. It makes it easier to clean brushes if they have been a bit wet first. I don't like waste, you see, so I have to clean the whatever it is off my stirring stick. Right, so I'm going to start with the front because the front is what's going to be seen. I'm trying to do it in long strokes. I don't want clumps of medium between the boards, but it dries quite smooth. It's And I probably am only going to do one coat because I say I don't want it to look like a glossy yacht. I just want to give it a bit of a sheen. And then hopefully tomorrow, because it's already the evening here, I will be sticking this in the cottage. I have to rein in my patience, or rein in my enthusiasm sometimes, be more patient, because I want to get it all done and in and move on. I'm eager to do the next bits, but I know that if I don't do it to the detail and the standard I want to, I will get very frustrated at myself, which is the whole painting between the boards kind of thing, because once I'd noticed that I could see pale strips between the floorboards, I just thought, no, I've got to fix that. So I had to get my paints out again and get a bit of sploshing. And it's not about perfection, it's about doing something that you are happy with. I'm not after perfection, I say this all the time. You work in the way that you are happy with, and if you like a more perfect finish, you do that. If you want something a little bit more, shall we say, relaxed, you do that. It's your project. What works for you is right for you. I'm really pleased with that. I'm going to leave it at that. Let me just move it around, just checking the light that I've got everywhere covered. I believe I have. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to use my brush to ladle this back into the bottle again. Ooh. I always think, what have you got in the house already? I'm not very good at making stuff out of trash, as they call it on the YouTube videos. We're a low rubbish household, so we don't have many bits and pieces. But if there's something I've got in the house, like the wax or the varnish or tools or whatever, then see how I can use those rather than spending, because this doesn't have to be an expensive hobby, and I'm making stuff for the joy of making it. When I did my first house back in the 80s, I had limited options for making things. Quite simply, I didn't have the tools, I didn't know how to, we didn't have videos and stuff like that in those days, way before internet. So I could, make things from magazines and stuff, but so very limited. And now I'm making things because I want to make them. So it's a whole different setup, really. Oh, I've just remembered what I was going to do, why I had that out. Okay, I want to do this with the gloss medium while I had my paintbrush. So, what brush have I got that I can use that is a brush? I think I will. Let's have that one. So let's move that out the way. So I want to varnish this on this. This is going to be the handrail. I haven't cut it down yet for my stairs because I've got a lot more measuring to do, and I want to do this top bit. I'm going to wax the rest of it, but if you imagine all the hands that grab hold of that as they go up and down stairs, it would have a shine about it, wouldn't it? So, and the handrail. So I'm going to do it straight from this. See, just when you think you've finished, this might get 2 coats. Don't know, I'll see how it dries tomorrow. And we'll see. I think it could be less shiny than I imagine, but that's okay. I've gone over a bit there. I think I won't just do that bit. Stick that on that lid. Things when you're doing it straight from the pot, you can't always see how deep everything is. So I've stained this with light oak wood stain, and I've given it a very gentle sand. And as I said in a previous video, I've been procrastinating about the stairs because it's a bit of a fiddly diddly job. I'm going to have to measure all of the spindles, and I realised that actually I was on the wrong track with my spindles. I was thinking in terms of round spindles. I'll just go over the back there because something's gone over the back. I was going to use kebab sticks, bamboo kebab sticks, and have them round, and I was really struggling about this because I remember in a previous house of mine that I had renovated, and I think I mentioned it had very ordinary spindles and stuff behind this hardboard they'd put over, and this had been a 1930s house, but they were sort of quite, if you like, ordinary basic spindles, but very lovely. And I was helping somebody, one of my older neighbours, the other day. I was helping them move some books that had a leak in their living room, and I was helping them move a load of books upstairs, and I noticed their stairs in this really, really old place that they live in, this cottage, had wooden spindles. And it struck me, see, you get inspiration from everywhere, that I needed wooden spindles. So I fished out some of the wooden beading that I've got, that I bought, and it's the right size. I can't remember what size it is. I think it's 1.5 by 1.5. I will check it before I make this and tell you. I will try and do a tutorial on this if I can concentrate and talk at the same time. And so doing doing square spindles actually feels much more correct for me. It feels like it would be a better fit for this staircase that is in quite a simple cottage. I don't see that they would have had twiddly wizzly fancy spindles going up the stairs in this cottage, so this feels more authentic for me. So sometimes we're procrastinating, but it's a really good reason why we're procrastinating, because something isn't quite right, and we need to trust our judgment and let the inspiration sort of come forward like bubbles in champagne rises to the surface. Our inspiration is trying to tell us something, and sometimes we've just got to step back and shut up. So I think that's it for this. This is drying beautifully. I like it already. I can see that it's just enough sheen, but it's not, say it's not shiny. I was talking about taking out a couple of dints and chunks here and there, but I think the boards, I think I did do a couple, but the boards are sort of random enough that I'm happy with that. It's, you know, it's not a perfect floor. None of the boards are perfect. It will all be random enough. It doesn't have to be perfect, which is, you know, perfect in its imperfections, if you like, but I'm very happy with that. Right, I'll see you on the next section. Bye for now. Hello, and we are on the final stretch of the floor. I don't know if you can see how luscious this is. This is a bright sunny day today in October, and I've got the door open to let the sun shine in, because you just got to do that. I'm really pleased with the sheeny shine on this. It's not too bright, not too, like I say, it's not like yacht varnish. It's just enough. So I'm going to put it in. I have checked, I have offered it up and checked that it fits, and it does fit. I'm very happy with that. So I'm going to put the glue in. So I ought to shake it really, shouldn't I? Always good to shake these things. Unfortunately, it is whitey white on sort of white, so it's a bit hard to see probably for you on camera, but we'll see how it goes. And I've got here an artist spatula, which, because I will use this to help spread it around. I don't want too much to go to the edges, because it will naturally spread to the edges, and I don't want oozage. But I will try and spread it around. Now, I think I said in an earlier video, I'm not going to put on skirting boards in here, because there is going to be furniture everywhere. I might end up with a little bit of skirting board there, I'm not sure. But I'm going to put skirting in the bathroom, and I'll show you that on another video, because looking down into the bathroom, you can see the edges, and it's not going to be stuff all the way around in there. Bearing in mind, people didn't have inside loos until fairly recently, so yeah, I'm not going to put a loo in there. So just put this to one side, because it's a bit ooey gooey. Double checking which is the back. Well, I know which is the back because it's got all these little pieces here, because that's actually going to be hidden away underneath other things. Let's just check you can see. So put it in, press it down, and give it a good press to get out any air bubbles or whatever. And I can't see any seepage, so that is good. I'm really pleased with that. I did just try this earlier to see how this looks, so that is going to be stuck to the wall to make it step back a little bit. I might have to do something underneath the feet, don't know. So if I had a skirting, that would be in the way there. But so that's going to be about there somewhere. The stairs, show you where the stairs are going to be, through the little, practically a loft hatch. So that's going to be, the stairs are going to be about there. So that's a nice high contrast, and I'm going to make a little settle, I think, to go there. Anyway, I've got lots of plans which I will share with you in another video. I'm very pleased with that. So let's put in some, I want to weight it down just in case it does lift up at all. I'm going to put some tissue down there. This is a thick piece of paper I tried, but I couldn't get it cut to the right size, so it doesn't matter if that goes over the edge because I'm going to use some big books. So bring out Delia, good old Delia. Weigh that down and we'll have a slow casserole book, slow cooker. On that side, that actually, I want that there. Oh, there we go, that's staying. So, there we are, good to go. So I'll show you the bathroom in another video. I think that's it for the floor. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. I hope it's inspired you. If you've got any questions at all, please pop them in the comments and I'll try and answer them as best I can. I'm not an expert on everything. But use this opportunity to pick my brains, ask me any questions. You know, you're not doing this on your own, but remember, it is your project, so you do it how you want to do it. I think I will wedge my glue in there or something. I'll have a fiddle to get this weighted a little bit more before all this falls down all the time. Okay, my lovely, talk to you soon. Bye for now.